What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with Genfinity, interviewing a multitude of builders across Web3. Well, I'll tell you, I always feel like it's kind of a bucket list type day whenever we get a Hedera Council member in for a podcast. So huge shout out to Dar Blockchain, Hedera Hacks, and Ishmael for bringing on DJ from Blockchain4NRG today. One of the most recent Hedera Council members joined in June. So we're going to be diving into the weeds with Blockchain4NRG. But, really, there's some pretty big news coming out of the Hedera Africa Hackathon today as well. As we've mentioned before, this is a global participant-enabled kind of hackathon. Anybody can participate. $1 million prize pool. It's already been announced that there's $1 million in follow-on funding as well. And the stats are lining up. I think well over 5,000 hackers, rapidly approaching 1,000 biddles here. But I'm going to stop rambling here and just hop into this podcast and welcome everybody. Ishmael, as we like to do, I want to kind of give you the mic first and let us get some updates on the status of the hackathon and talk about this extension a little bit.
100%, yeah. So some pretty big news for the hackathon. I don't want to start with the extension. I want to start with something bigger that led to the extension, which is we have just lined up a really good investment committee for the hackathon. So I cannot announce the names yet, but we have $3 million right now committed in follow-on investment. One is from UGFS and two from other two big VCs related to the Hedera ecosystem that we're going to announce one later this week and one next week. And there's a potential even for a fourth VC to join so we can get the hackathon investment up to 5 million. So that led us to think bigger about the hackathon and that the ideas of the hackers deserve more time and that people have been asking for more time to create more investable projects and much more robust ideas and biddles so that they can not only qualify for the prize pool, because finally the prize pool, which is also an insanely big amount, is not the star of the show anymore. So as we have $3 million in follow-on investment, so people wanted more time to create better projects, to be able to compete for the prize better, and to be able to be eligible for these follow-on investment amounts. So as for the hackathon, as of today, we have 665 projects already submitted. We have more than 5,162 hackers already registered for the hackathon. And we have more than 20 hacking stations all over Africa. We have upcoming sessions in Cairo, in Amman, in South Africa, in Kenya, in Ethiopia, Rwanda. I'm currently in one of the hacking stations in Tunis at Orange Digital Center. So we really like to thank Orange for their support in the hackathon by offering us access to these hacking stations to be able for us to give the hackers a space to hack, to create teams, to get mentored in different things. And speaking of mentorship, also has more than 50 mentorship sessions across the hackathon in the past 2 months and more upcoming, not only in technical mentorship and technical support, but also in business support and investment readiness with partners such as Taylor Wessing, Reardon Assets, Signum Bank, and other partners. So the momentum is picking up. We also have office hours every day for hackers to be certified in Hedera. Now we have more than 9,000 people have been registered, have been certified for the Hedera Developer Certification since the start of the hackathon. More than 27,000 people are registered in the learning platform. So some pretty crazy numbers that even we didn't expect honestly, when we started organizing the hackathon. So yeah, we wanted to give people more space, more time to make it happen and to really show the quality of the projects that can go out of the hackathon.
I know whenever you said so first off, the follow-on funding, getting up to $3 million is absolutely wild. But before we even hit record, you were panning your camera in the back, and it's always cool to see like people out there hacking in the wild. Because like I think sometimes like in blockchain and distributed ledger, like we forget that like this is just like the internet is obviously global. This is a global technology, and you see things lighting up all across the globe, which is just really, really cool to see. I do want to allow DJ, and we're going to hop back into that in a second, Ishmael. So as he just mentioned, that is absolutely huge. The timeline has been extended for the hackathon. This is global participation. Anybody can participate. Let me pop the screen back up here again. You can go to HederaHacks.com, DoraHacks.io, and find it as well here. But 31 days left for submission. You can see how many projects and hackers right now, and $1 million prize pool with $3 million in follow-on funding. And Ishmael said it might not stop there, which is going to be really cool as well. I do want to allow our guest here to give an intro of himself, but DJ, we'd love to learn, more about you, more about what Blockchain4NRG is doing, what you're excited about with a hackathon like this, and yeah, congrats on the membership into the Hedera Council a little bit earlier this year. Oh, you're muted.
And am I good?
You're good.
All right. So super excited to be here. So thanks for the opportunity, Ismail, Solomon, and Michael to be here. So my name is DJ. I serve as the Director of Technology at the Blockchain4NRG. Now, Blockchain4NRG is the newest, council member of the Hedera Governing Council. So it's like super exciting. I mean, we've been building a node as part of that journey, and part of very big companies, and we represent the energy industry as Blockchain4NRG. So it's not just the consortium that we are, but we have a bunch of members that are here on the screen. So ExxonMobil, Chevron, and other kind of big names that you might have seen. And that are basically the biggest companies in the world. And what really makes us different is we're not like a typical kind of vendor selling to those kind of companies, but we are those companies, right? So we are by the industry and for the industry, how we like to say it. So that's really exciting. And basically together with those big companies, we are coming up with different solutions that really help the energy industry. And one of them is B4E Carbon, which is on the screen right now. And that was built natively on Hedera. So from the start of the project, we're using an Hedera project called Guardian as well, which I think in previous podcasts you might have been speaking about as well. So we use that as part of our solution. So super exciting. And about 2 weeks ago, we migrated 2 other very big elements of our solution suite onto Hedera, which is the B4E network and platform, which is the B4E logistics solution. So they used to be running on a private stack, so running on Hyperledger Besu, and now we've been moving it all over to Hedera. So super excited that we have live customers actually on. So we are these are solutions that are running already in production. So it's not IDs or suggestions, but it's actually really running already. So happy to dive into that more in case you want to go there. Now, to answer the question, like what I'm excited about, I mean, I'm just excited to see what the IDs are going to be, because we really need entrepreneurial mindsets and great ideas. And I think especially in the Africa region, where if you think about energy and the energy gap, if you want to call it like that, or how many people have access to energy, I think there's still a long way to go and much more improvement we can do. I think Africa has extremely brilliant minds that we need to be part of these kind of hackathons, just to get great ideas for Africa and for the world. So I'm super excited about that. And what's on the screen right now are the 3 main solutions that we are having currently in production live. But I mean, especially the B4E network and platform, I think that's probably the most exciting part that we have, because that's the building block, how we call it. So that's basically where all the solutions are built upon, and it's open also for external developers. So if you feel there's something that you feel you can contribute towards the energy industry, don't hesitate to reach out, contribute, develop things, come up with showcases. And I know that's what the hackathon is about, but that's also, don't just stop with the hackathon, because that's, a whole world that's kind of waiting for, great ideas that really make the energy industry more efficient, more collaborative, etc.
I think what's really interesting, and I'm sure maybe Michael might have a question, or Ishmael, but I think first off, I'm really excited to have you guys here with us today. I think, when you mention like the logistics platform and the network platform kind of migrating over onto mainnet and a public network, it's very interesting, because I think that we're slowly starting to see these types of things occurring with blockchain and distributed ledger, where there has to be compliance, like from the enterprise and institutional level. It seems like compliance just has to be first, and that's you can't get around that, obviously. But then it also seems like it's kind of this trust building exercise. Let's maybe try out a proof of concept and maybe do something in private, or where we can do a proof of concept on public. But I guess that's a really interesting story for me is like, deciding to go from Hyperledger Besu over onto mainnet, bringing the private to public. Do you expect maybe just, and this is just your opinion, I guess, broadly, like for blockchain and distributed ledger, do you expect slowly that we'll start to see, as trust builds up and as we have, clear, compliance in place, that we'll start to see some things migrate over onto kind of public networks where they can? Or do you expect them to maybe, still stay private? Or just any of your thoughts around that at all? Because I think it's a really interesting subject that probably a lot of people care about.
Yeah, I mean, just my 2 cents on that one. I mean, we've recently gone through it, and one of the reasons is definitely that we needed to get some level of confidence and trust in I would say, the blockchain solutions in general. So it was like a good kind of breeding ground for, the innovations that we were bringing to the market. But at the same time, there's so many privacy technologies available nowadays that weren't available, 5, 6, 7 years ago when we started pioneering. And therefore, there's a lot of ways that, sensitive data can be hidden from the public, while you still benefit from the security that the mainnet brings. That cannot be beaten by a Hyperledger Besu, because that's pretty much private, and therefore you never reach that level of consensus with 30, 40 nodes like within Hedera. So, and then the other side of things is also B4E carbon. I mean, that's one of our solutions that's all about reducing carbon footprint, carbon credits, etc. And then you want to run ideally on the most green blockchain that exists out there. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen the studies, but Hedera is like the absolute number one in terms of carbon footprint, and that's of course absolutely great, for especially in the industry where carbon and pollution is like a big deal. So
100%. No, yeah, I know there's been multiple studies. I think the one that sticks out to me was the UCL study from maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, University College of London, which is obviously pretty big as far as the research they do into blockchain. The last question I have, just because I do get excited about this stuff, is, I'll bring it back to the hackathon a little bit. And there's 4 tracks. And we've talked about this, Ishmael, multiple times. You've got on-chain finance and RWA, operations, immersive experiences, AI, and DPIN, or decentralized physical infrastructure networks. I kind of want to ask from DJ, from your standpoint, because it's, we are at a very interesting time, just as human beings, because there's a lot of different areas of technology that seem to be converging at once. And even in the blockchain industry, there's a lot of different things that are converging at once. I brought up the point before that I'm really kind of excited to see some of these builds with this hackathon that leverage multiple. It's just naturally they're just going to leverage probably multiple tracks, multiple different things from multiple different tracks. I mean, what are your thoughts just broadly from your stance, or for Blockchain4NRG? Like, are you guys excited about all this different technology that seems to be coming together? Or maybe just your thoughts, I mean, on all the things we're kind of, I mean, between AI, blockchain, all the stuff that we're seeing right now, it's a lot. And just maybe your broad thoughts on all the tech that's seemingly converging at once. It's almost overwhelming to an extent.
No, 100%. And I think it's great because we do see that kind of convergence happening now. In the past, we used to see, where IoT was coming together with, blockchain. So that's what we have in our current logistics solution already. But then, now we see AI coming into there with more predictive things. And in the case of, logistics, it's about, okay, what are my, future logistic costs going to be? So it's all kind of coming together. At the same time, operations is key, because we want to, have the most efficient level of operations, which again links back to your track number 2. And then, this whole DeFi integration of using stable coins for actual payment of, bringing it back to our logistics solution is all about, an operator has a vendor and the vendor does something. And if, the IoT data matches that vendor movement, basically that vendor wants to get paid. Now, how fast, can you do that? The fastest and most efficient way, even if it goes cross-border, is using blockchain, because it's low cost, instant speed. So that's where we're, super excited about. We are in the midst of, exploring how we're going to do that, actually, because we're still at the beginning shoes, to be very honest, on the Blockchain4NRG side. I mean, we have the IDs, we haven't implemented this yet. So the hackathon is, kind of brainstorming about those things. And I think that's great. And I think the outcome of the hackathon will be an inspiration for our future roadmap and product roadmap as well.
Michael and Ishmael, I'll take over this whole conversation if you guys let me. So if you guys have anything for DJ here, please feel free.
I guess the biggest thing for me, as the president of Hashgraph Online, and we work with a lot of organizations directly. So I'd love to know, when it comes to onboarding companies into, not just the world of blockchain, but also Hedera and DLTs, what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys run into in terms of managing that kind of membership system and getting people excited?
At this moment, I would say we are in a pretty sensitive and complex industry. So there's always important things about companies not being on very practically not being on sanctions list and not being in kind of adverse media and stuff like that. So that's a very important part. So we do what we call know your business verification whenever we onboard. But then after the kind of initial onboarding and kind of making sure that companies are good to go. The second challenge is typically, how do we then hook up the systems and how do we make sure? Because there's still a decent amount of educational things going on. Because still blockchain, I think, is reaching now some level of adoption. But at the same time, depending on the industry and energy is probably, not the best example. I mean, they're still typically a couple of steps back, and typically very careful to adopt brand new technologies like blockchain, even though it's no longer brand new, but it's still is being presumed as such. So it's a fair amount of education and hand-holding to basically get them there. But then once the excitement comes in, that typically whenever they start to see the results. So whenever that kind of automation comes in, that transparency that it gives is like, oh wow, I mean, we should have done this like 5 years ago. But to get them there, I mean, that's kind of the journey where it gets kind of it's fun, but it's definitely time consuming, and it requires a fair amount of convincing power and demonstrations and proving and answering also difficult questions from IT departments, because we are SOC 2 compliant, ISO 27001 compliant, but how can you prove that on the blockchain layer? So there's this level of uncertainty, like where does the data go? And some countries have restrictions, like my data has to stay within the borders. Like, how does that work with blockchain? So a lot of interesting things to wrestle with, really. And to get kind of the right answers for, and to make sure that we have good answers for those questions.
Well, there's a lot of companies out there too that I know. So like I come from like a couple of different backgrounds, like before the crypto days, like project management within like heavy manufacturing and stuff like that. So like we dealt like heavily in the steel and aluminum industry. And there are all sorts of obviously requirements for reporting and carbon emissions and all the other stuff. And you realize like, I fervently, this is just my opinion, I fervently believe that DLT and blockchain are going to basically run under the hood of everything. I think it's just an upgrade to the internet. I think it's going to take us a while to get there, but that's the way I look at it. So then I kind of look at these industries, and like even an industry I was in, there are some really old school people that are in a lot of these industries. You've almost got like mom and pop shops. Then you have the big entities like US Steel and all these like huge entities that have been doing this for years. And they do go by kind of like reporting requirements and stuff, but the processes are like not automated. I remember even from a manufacturing standpoint, like the way that you trace like steel plate and aluminum plate is usually like a batch number that's like scribed on a plate. So it's like, we're still at that point, which is probably 40 or 50, whenever that process started, hundreds of years ago, something like that, 100 years ago. But I think it's really interesting because I do think that most of adoption in these industries is going to come from maybe not the most sexy Twitter-esque retail-ish like use cases, but like real world use cases that are just solving pain points for different industries. I guess the question I have for you, DJ, is like, when you look at the energy industry, it seems like there's a big opportunity because, I've done a bunch of these interviews where I've learned that greenwashing is a big problem. What do you think are some of the low-hanging fruit, as far as like, different solutions right now that are actually going to solve pain points? And are there a lot of different, I think you brought up, there's even some industries that aren't even that far yet, like I think of real estate. Are there a lot of like competitors out there that are actually innovating with the technology, or do you still think that it's very early for institutions, entities, enterprise to like kind of take this on and meaningfully make changes?
I mean, that's a loaded question. I mean, and a bunch of answers that could be given, honestly, Solomon. So, I mean, I like your example that you gave at the beginning about steel and about tracing and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we were actually working with one of our sister organizations, the International Association of Oil and Gas Producers, IOGP. They came up with a specification called the Material Digital Passport, which is based on blockchain, but that's actually where you trace like a piece of steel all the way through, because you want to make sure that your steel is legit and that it's not like a counterfeit that's coming, from stuff that you can't trust, right? I mean, this is lives of people are depending on it. If you build like kind of those wells or platforms, etc. So those kind of things are happening, and this is pretty recent. We were a big part of that definition. Exactly, this is the one that you have on the screen here. So super exciting, that basically makes it as an NFT, and then you can basically make it interoperable as well between different solutions. So there's a lot of interesting movements happening in that front, and that basically make real use cases happen. Now on the greenwashing side, I mean, obviously a lot of issues there. I think the news has been full in the past, and I God forbid, but it likely there will be more kind of scams coming up every now and then, with solutions that are just not transparent, right? Where people think, okay, you're planting some trees in the Amazon area, or whatever, but it's not really happening. And with blockchain, the beauty of it is you have the complete traceability, especially if you combine it with IoT. So our solution, on the carbon side is just to make it completely transparent. And that's exactly what Guardian helps with. But even before that, if you connect that IoT immediately to the blockchain, you have an immutable trace from literally A to Z that can be audited by anybody who wants to, because that token carries that complete history. So there's we were even in the world of carbon, you typically have like an entity which you call a VVB, which is like a verification and validation body. And we were debating, literally 2 weeks ago, like, do we actually still need them? If you have this complete auditability, do you still need them? Because what do they need to audit? The bits and bytes are clear, they're black on white. So why do you still need some independent guy, with some high hat on, with like 5 titles, on his shoulder? Do you still need that person, to kind of look over the shoulder? And the answer is probably not in the very near future. So it's just awesome. And those are really practical use cases that, first of all, avoid greenwashing completely, and, make the whole life cycle efficient as well. And therefore, the persons who are actually, the project developers that are coming up with those ideas, I mean, they have a quicker route towards the money that they will, benefit from, right? And it's better for the environment. It's better for, a cash flow perspective. So loads of benefits.
Yep. Michael, I think I interrupted you earlier, by the way. And again, I told you guys I'm going to end up taking over this interview. We'll wrap down here in a couple minutes. So go ahead, Michael.
This is really exciting. I mean, it's really awesome to have folks like you on the show, DJ. And there are so many parallels to the industries now and what the new internet looks like to the previous internet. When the internet started, there was we started working on these things like TLS, SSL, and root certificates. And there's a lot of parallels to how root certificates were developed and how Hedera is set up, and how organizations like Blockchain4NRG is set up, because most people don't know this. But the root certificates, the little padlock that you see in your browser wherever you go, is governed by, drumroll, a bunch of leading Fortune 500 organizations that got together. And they agreed, okay, we need this thing. And then we need somebody at the top to verify all the way to the bottom that these requests are legitimate. And these root certificates, they issue the SSL certificates all the way down. This is an interesting parallel because you look at things like the Hedera Governing Council, which is run by Fortune 500 companies, and they govern the network. And it kind of operates the same way. Every single transaction that goes through the network is verified by these nodes. And then we all agree, through organizations that have a lot of trust and reputation on the line, that these transactions are legitimate. So that Google is going to go and fudge a transaction. They're not going to go and do that with Blockchain4NRG. And then the parallel is really interesting too, what you're talking about, these VVB, I think you call them, IDs, and how we don't really need them anymore because we have the Hedera Consensus Service. And with the Hedera Consensus Service, every transaction you put on it creates a running hash. So you can always verify all the content inside of the Hedera Consensus Service. And you can do awesome things with it. Like at Hashgraph Online, we've created standards for putting files on chain. And recently we started working on HCS 14 for agent identity. The point being is that for 1/100th of a penny, you can verify all of these things. And with the example that Ryan was talking about earlier with the steel being etched onto steel, I can think of a million ways on how we can improve that process, through the agentic economy. Just put a device that scans the ID and uploads it and signs it with their private key and then puts it on a consensus topic. So now you can get these trust chains all the way to the top, the same way that root certificates were built out during the early days of the internet.
What I think is really interesting, I think DJ brought it up. I think when more and more processes start coming on chain, and you have that transparency where it can be transparent, you have the auditability and all this stuff. I really do think it's just going to totally shake up processes and streamline business processes and all this different stuff. Because if you think about right now, even internally within certain organizations, you have for those people that might not be aware, a lot of companies just have like these ERP systems that are like enterprise resource planning. And it's like, here's your accounting module, and here's your supply chain module. And it's all baked into one thing. They're all kind of walled off from each other. As soon as you kind of like start removing walls and putting stuff in a way that's auditable and transparent, it's naturally going to be like, why do we do this, this, and this for processes? Why don't we just do this? Because we have all the data in front of us. It's kind of really exciting. So I think also another thing, Michael, and you sparked this in me, is like we've done a couple of like decentralized science panels before, and I think DeSci is a really cool topic too. The way that like research is just done between academics or scientists or whatever, I think that when you use something like Hedera Consensus or any, for an example, it's really going to allow you to kind of go down the entire chain of something happening and like pinpoint and then use that data. It really puts the power in the hands of the user for being able to have optics on data. And is it meaningful? Is it valuable data, or is it just a bunch of fluff? Anyways, I'm rambling now, but I do want to ask, because DJ, you mentioned this before we even hit record. Like, I would love if you could tell people, like, for those people that want to learn more about Blockchain4NRG or potentially get involved or reach out to you guys or whatever it may be, like, what's the best way for people to learn more or get involved, or, whatever it may be? Because I'm sure there's a couple of different routes here.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's many routes. Just 2 cents on what you just mentioned. Sure. Regarding kind of ERPs. What we've seen with our B4E logistic is, that operators actually are reducing 90% of kind of, the stuff is now completely automated, transparently on chain. And therefore, the operational efficiency is crazy, right? They're barely touching anything anymore. So that's kind of the beauty. People are super scared, like, okay, do we do it? But then they kind of lay back and they just see the numbers ticking while they do literally nothing, right? Just looking at the screen. So they can use their time for much more meaningful stuff. So that's just super exciting to see that happen. In regards of, contacts, there's many ways you can reach us. Basically go to our website, b4e.net or blockchain4energy.net. Both of them will work. There's a contact form there, so you can contact us there. You can contact us on Twitter. You can contact us on different social media. We're even on Instagram. We're on Facebook. If you feel like using those channels, feel free also to connect with us on LinkedIn. Please follow what we're kind of doing. You can connect directly to me through LinkedIn. That's a great way. Or you can just drop an email to dj@b4e.net if you want to get directly in touch with me. And then I'll be more than happy to get back to you if you're interested, have any questions, or if you want to kind of contribute to any of the initiatives we're doing. More than welcome.
Ishmael, I would love if you could round us out here with the hackathon. To recap for those that are just watching, Ishmael, I'll let you do it because I'll step on your toes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation, especially with DJ. I think it really opens the perspective of people, especially in the DLT for operations track. I think we have also, as you guys know, I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but we have a 60,000 special reward for sustainability-related projects as part of an agreement with the HBAR fund. So we're really nailing down on how people, especially in Africa, can use blockchain for energy, not blockchain for energy per se, but can use the Hedera technology for energy purposes. And I've worked with projects even under our blockchain before, like Latency, where we've tried to create peer-to-peer networks for energy trading and stuff like that. And I really think there's a lot of potential for this. So yeah, so please look into blockchain for energy, see how you guys can contribute and build things that can be in relation with that. We are really keen to see that builds like that in the hackathon. And to wrap up, yeah, it's now 3 million plus in follow-on investment, 1 million in price pool. Deadline has been extended with 31 days until the end of October. So you have people and hackers have more than enough time to impress us and to impress a really good selection of juries that we will start announcing soon. Our jury members. We have Michael, especially from Hashgraph Online here, who's one of our jury members in the AI track. We have DJ too. We have a lot of interesting profiles. So please do your best to impress them, make us proud, and yeah, go get it.
Michael, do you have any closing thoughts? I know that you guys, and by the way, make sure you guys are giving Hashgraph Online a follow as well. And these guys have been doing weekly AI panels. I'm going to pull it up, Michael, as you run through any closing thoughts you might have.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Again, every Thursday we run Hedera AI, which is one of the most interesting shows at the intersection of Hedera, AI, and Web2 and Web3. We usually have close to 300 people show up for this show that we run weekly. We cover research, we do pitch competitions. This week will be more research focused, but if you're interested in winning $100, tune in next week and pitch your project, or come up this week anyway and tell us what you're working on, what you're interested in the industry. We cover all the new events, and obviously this week we'll be talking about Sonnet 4.5 and a number of other things that have come up in the industry. Hashgraph Online, we are really happy to co-sponsor the AI track from the Hedera Africa Hackathon. I think there's a lot of innovation that could be built out around trust, the trust chains, and particularly around this energy side. I'd love to see any solutions and ideas that you guys might have. Join us on Telegram or join us in the Hedera Hacks Telegram and ask questions, right? We have mentors who are ready to answer anything that you might want to know. And from, kind of the larger perspective, as everything converges, and, we say this all the time at Hashgraph Online, we're creating the new internet. Not because it's a cool toy or a gadget, it's just the natural progression of things. With AI, the internet is about to explode with 90% AI generated content, or slop, as some people like to call it, right? And that means that websites are going to be easier and easier to deploy. Everyone is going to have an agent. I'll probably have 10 agents. DJ will probably have 100 agents for the cool stuff that he's doing. And as the world scales up, you kind of realize that DNS wasn't built for that. It wasn't. We're looking at a world where we have billions, if not trillions, of entities. And that world is going to be very, very different. And we'd love to see your solutions around this. What does it look like? What does this new internet look like? And Hedera is the perfect place to build it out. We've got $1 million in prizes, but also Ishmael just talked about an additional $3 million in follow-on funding. This isn't just an opportunity to enter a hackathon as a hacker. It's an opportunity to build a startup that might change the internet forever. So we really look forward to you guys joining us.
Yeah, and I think even on top, I guess for the last thing that I'll add here is, $1 million prize pool is massive. $3 million follow-on funding is massive. But I still fervently believe the power of blockchain, distributed ledger, and Web3 and the opportunity is the ability to network and change your life. Because if you, if you learn how to build, or if you're already a builder and then you participate, you never know who's like looking at what you've built and what types of, all it takes, at least in my thought process here, is all it takes is a foot in the door for somebody to recognize or see value in what you're doing. And I mean, we just showed from Blockchain4NRG, just as one example, some of the entities that are involved, and they're some of the biggest entities in the world. And I'm sure if you build something really cool and it raises eyebrows from people, they're not just going to ignore you. So like, I think that's a huge opportunity in and of itself, is just, making yourself known. But I want to thank Michael from Hashgraph Online. These guys do awesome podcasts every Thursday. Learn all about the AI track, and excited to see kind of more on the AI front moving forward. Ishmael, From DAR Blockchain and Hedera Hack standpoint, I want to thank the Hashgraph Association for helping to put these podcasts together. I want to thank Exponential Science, who also is a kind of collaborating cohort alongside the Hashgraph Association for this hackathon. And then DJ from Blockchain4NRG. I hope this isn't the last time we have you on, DJ. It's awesome. Make sure you guys go check out more about Blockchain4NRG and learn how to get involved. That being said, gentlemen, hang out with me here for a second as I ramp this down and make sure I get our recordings. Thank you, guys.